Dear students, I welcome all of you in the Department of Environmental Sciences. I am Dr. Mubashir Jilani. I will be taking some of the initial lectures as per the curriculum which has been devised by the Cluster University Srinagar. We are doing utmost, or we can say the best possible way to impart the education, or we can say the environmental education through this online mode. Since I am not going to upload the PDF, but instead on daily basis you will be provided with a video recorded, so that sitting at home safe you can gain the best possible knowledge regarding this subject. Now today I have chosen the first lecture, that is the multidisciplinary nature of this environmental studies. Well, students, before giving you some definitions, it is already given in the books. Basically, we have seen that there are some unprecedented crises all around in every country, and I believe that this is one of the most compelling reason for studying environmental sciences or it is management in view of these environmental crises. Basically, this I can, in short form, I can translate it that it is the environmental crisis which have compelled the authorities to study environmental science or environmental studies. Now, indeed, there are many scientists, there are many authors which they have claimed what are the present environmental crises, and they have gone to the extent that these environmental crises, or the magnitude of these environmental crises, they are unprecedented, they are very severe, the pace is very high. Now, as far as the awareness component of this environmental crisis is concerned, it has grown since 1970s, partly as a result of that there were some major environmental crises or disasters. One such disaster, you might be knowing it, that is Sahelian droughts of 1970s. And another environmental disaster is the Chernobyl disaster of 1986. These were the two prominent disasters in early 70s and 80s, which ultimately got prominence that we need to study the environment. In fact, in early 90s, a major assessment of the global environment took place, and that assessment came into the shape of a report. We call it as United Nations Environment Program Global Environment Look 2000 report. Basically, this report has drawn some attention to two critical these environmental disasters or crises. This was the report which was published in 1999, and this report is called as UNEP Global Environment Outlook 2000 report. And number one critical crisis, the attention to the critical crisis was the fact that global human ecosystem is threatened by grave imbalances. There was no balance in productivity and the distribution of goods and services. This is very important. That I will repeat, that the global human ecosystem, later on, this what is this ecosystem, it will we will carry it later on. But initial phase that basically I am trying to explain what were the reasons or what were the bases which drew our attention towards this environment or environmental disasters, or for that matter environmental crisis. This report also shows that there is a gap. What kind of a gap? Between the people, what people? That who benefit from economic and technological development, and the people who do not basically get benefits out of these environmental resources. With the result, what happens? The result is, instead of improvements in environmental protection, the by these new technologies, environment is day by day it got degraded, or I can use a term, it got cancelled out. The welfare or improvement in the environment protection got cancelled out by the pace of human population, their growth, and their economic development. And definitely, once we start doing certain activities, there is always a result, there is always a consequence. And consequence of these factors, these facts, which we called as economic and technological benefits, the consequence of these was that the earth has witnessed a wide range of environmental problems. Now, what are those environmental problems? Because of the, I will again repeat, because of the imbalances. Imbalances are the more and more economic and social development. Once we say economic and social development, that means that we are outstripping the progress. We are outstripping the progress. We are basically draining more and more environmental resources. Now, well, students, now from the previous slide, that is slide number 1, now we have reached up to a point that where the environmental problems or environmental crisis, they have emerged. There are a wide range of these environmental problems or environmental crises that are apparent, that are visible now. And what are those problems? They include anthropogenic climate change, because anthropogenic, we call climate change are two types. One is that is induced by the anthropogenic, that is the humans, because of the humans. As in the first slide, we have seen how technologies, how human population growth that has led to the imbalance between environment and the environmental resources. And this is the first impact or a crisis or a problem which is called as a anthropogenic climate change, or in short form, in common man's language, we can call this a global warming. And second, you have seen the depletion of ozone. All these points will be discussed one by one later on, but uh, this is called as depletion of the ozone, depletion of stratospheric ozone. That is, whatever ozone is present in the stratospheric layer of the atmosphere, that is depleting day by day. It is another problem, or we can say ozone hole. The acidification of surface water, that is, whatever surface waters we are having, there are a lot of acids. There are a lot of acids now because there are a lot of acids. Destruction of tropical forests, the depletion and extinction of the species, whether it is a plant species or it's an animal species. Loss of biodiversity or decline in biodiversity, another problem. Now these are, I can see these are some of the problems with respect to the environment. With respect to the now, we need to find out the potential solutions. We have to solve these problems. How we can solve these problems now? Now these variety of invariable these problems can be solved with the help of number one, human attitudes. We have to change our attitude, beliefs, values, needs, desires, expectations, and behaviors. Now these are a few potential solutions so that we could reverse the environmental disasters. Now these were few of the environmental problems and their solutions. Now, well, students, so moving to now this slide, that what I believe that at this point, a brief overview of the environmental crisis, they may be fruitful or helpful to mention it here. Basically, I have mentioned few of these. I consider these are the current environmental crisis which exists. There might be some controversies regarding some of the issues over here. For example, if I talk of this climate, for example, you might have heard that this climate, there are some controversies. There are some controversies between the countries, but crises are there. You cannot deny that we are without crisis. The first, coming to the climate change. This climate change. This climate change mostly is because of the activities of the humans. How that this change occurs due to pollution of the atmosphere by greenhouse gases and other contaminants And this climate change is today considered as one of the major global environmental issues. And this this kind of a change largely occurs as a result of combustion or burning of fossil fuels. There are emissions from the agriculture. There are emissions or emissions from the vehicles. Yeah, land use changes, for example, destruction of the forests, clearing of the forests, burning of the forest. And this climate change has ecological as well as social impacts or effects. Now, we have seen the projected impacts, for example, global mean surface temperature, sea level, ocean circulations, precipitation patterns, climatic zones, species distribution. Species distribution is the distribution of plants and animals. Small plants, small animals, big animals. And the impact on the ecosystem functioning. These are all with respect to the climate change. Similarly, the depletion of the ozone in the stratosphere of the atmosphere, how what happens to it that due to the pollution of atmosphere by halocarbons. We call them as halocarbons. Commonly you might have heard that chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs. This depletion of the ozone is another serious environmental issue. Similarly, you might have been knowing the quality of the air. Quality of the air is also degraded due to air pollutions, particularly because of our factories, because of our automobiles. They are responsible for the degradation of the air quality. Now, this air quality, it causes some respiratory and some cardiovascular illnesses. Large populations, they are having respiratory problems throughout the world. Now, similarly, we have degraded water quality. Water quality, another serious issue because of the contamination of water with pollutants. Now, water is needed by everyone. We require water for drinking, at least for drinking purposes. Now, there are a wide range of these health related issues. There are also some ecological effects. And all these issues will be taken one by one in the future lectures. Here, just I want to give you an idea, basically, why we are studying this environment. Now, what role you being the student can play regarding the awareness is as far as the awareness is concerned. Similarly, we have scarcity of fresh water. We don't have water to drink. Many of the countries around the world, they just get water from very far off places. Salinization is one of the most critical problem nowadays. Land contamination. Now our land, we are not able to grow more and more food. Land contamination is a very active problem nowadays. Now similarly, moving to deforestation. Now deforestation Now, deforestation, it has been estimated that around half of the world's mature forests have been cleared by the humans. Soil erosion and degradation, another concern. Now, since soil erosion and degradation has led to now desertification of the area, deserts are being formed. That becomes land becomes a good land becomes a desert. Now, land use change. We are doing a lot of industrialization. We are doing a lot of urbanization. More and more people are coming to the urban areas. We are clearing forests for agriculture. We are clearing forests in the rural areas for making roads, dams, new infrastructures. Now, new systems are coming up. Now, with this, all these new systems, establishment of all these new systems had led to what we call the land use change or land use pattern. You will come a term land use pattern. Now, habitat loss. We are losing a lot of habitats. Habitats is basically a dwelling place where an organism, say for example, it lives. Once we destroy, and with the result, what will happen? We will lose these habitats, very good habitats. Biodiversity is the variety of plants and animals. Many plants and animal species are threatened, and they are at the stage where we can see that they may get extinct. Now, as for the United Nations Environment Program 1999, there is a report that they have estimated that 1/4 of the world's mammal species and around 1/10 of the world's bird species face the significant risk of total extinction. That means that they will go, we will not be able to see them once again. This is biodiversity loss. Now there are certain, basically there are certain, it is my view that there are certain losses which are not visible, neither they are visible to the scientific community nor they are visible to us. They are not apparent to us. We cannot see them. These are the losses which we may view after say 20 years or after a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, and at that time we can say yes, this problem or this loss has been because of a particular factor. Now, this I have added that some losses which are not apparent. I thank you all for this patient hearing to this lecture. Basically, this was the introductory lecture to the studies of the environment. Thank you all.